One of the more chaotic conferences in college football has been the Big 12, and Iowa State and Arizona State have had their fair share of chaotic experiences. Now they find themselves in the Big 12 championship game, and this is a game that's going to have huge implications after this weekend. The playoff is coming up, and the winner of this game obviously is going to get in. The loser is pretty much getting kicked out. They're not going to make it, and that's what makes the stakes even higher. Both of these teams have played with a ton of confidence at times this year, and it's going to be fun to see which one of them can come out with the win. Arizona State currently is a 2.5 point favorite, and that's kind of been the theme of the Big 12 this year. There have been a lot of 3 point spreads, 2.5, 2, 3.5. It's been right around a field goal. Those are the kinds of games that make this really exciting conference to watch. And Arizona State has been playing with a ton of confidence. They are playing with a ton of momentum, and it didn't look like that early in the season, but they have found ways to rattle off win after win, and they're right here where they expected to be if you're inside of that program. Everybody else, not so much. This is a team that was picked to finish bottom of the conference, and Iowa State was down there as well. But these are two teams that have exceeded expectations and have really intriguing players that we'll talk about here in a little bit. This is the first meeting between these two teams, which is kind of a theme with some of these conference realignments, if you will, or even just like very, very little meetings before. So we had this in the ACC, now in the Big 12. Those are first time meetings for these two teams. And Arizona State and Iowa State will meet for the first time. For Iowa State, the biggest question for the Cyclones is how do you stop Cam Scatterbo? And that's going to be a question for anybody that faces Arizona State. Arizona State relies on Scatterbo to move the ball down the field. He is a very physical runner. If you really like what Ashton Genty does for Boise State, Cam Scatterbo is someone who does similar things for Arizona State, more of a bowling ball type runner, but he is definitely capable of breaking off big plays at any moment. And he has been a big reason for their success as of recently. And he has been really fun to watch. Now, there obviously are other players that we'll talk about, and their importance is just as much as Scatterbo's to this offense, but he is the rock of that offense. If they are running the football really well, typically they are winning football games. And as of late, that has been the case. There's been a direct correlation between their success and Cam Scatterbo's production. They have been really good when he is running the ball really well. For Arizona State, I think the question is how do you get around this unique defense? Iowa State's defense has plenty of talented players, and their defense they run is just a little bit different than what you've normally seen, and that could provide some wrinkles that Arizona State hasn't seen before. That'll be really fun to watch. The question for Arizona State is, can they bait Rocco Becht? I think Rocco Becht has done a pretty good job of making this offense go, but there have also been some times where you have some questions about his decision making, and I think at times he's been really confident, and you've seen him move the ball down the field. And I feel like every time that I've watched him super in depth, he has been just lighting it up and moving the ball down the field really effectively. But how do you bait him? How do you get him to make poor decisions? Because you know that he plays with confidence, and we've seen so far this year, you've seen he's thrown some picks, made some bad decisions. That's how Arizona State gets you. This isn't an State team that is very disruptive overall, but they are very capable of taking the football away. They have multiple players with multiple interceptions, and they're going to look to find ways to bait Rocco Becht into poor decisions, turn the ball over and get the ball back to Scatterbo in that offense. The matchup that I really want to watch is Iowa State's linebackers versus Sam Levitt. Now, I would say it's against Cam Scatterbo, but that one's really obvious. Sam Levitt has been really fun to watch for Arizona State because he's been successful. He's made some big time plays, but it's also his creativity that's been really fun to watch. It's also been nerve wracking if you're an Arizona State fan, but he has been a big reason for their success. And while he is not maybe your traditional dual threat, he is definitely capable of making plays with his legs. Now, he has to face a pretty good Iowa State defense and find ways to move the ball and be effective with the football in his hands, because this is an Iowa State team that's probably going to try to take away Scatterbo and make Levitt beat them. And that's going to be a really fun matchup to watch. It's going to be interesting how those linebackers for Iowa State move around, confuse him, and maybe turn the ball over back to their offense. Now, the key players, the impact players for Iowa State, everything starts with Rocco Becht. That shouldn't be a surprise. Rocco Becht is going to be the biggest reason they win this game or lose this game. He is going to be the X factor for this team, and his ability to move the ball down the field says a lot about where this team is going. The rushing attack obviously has been good. We've seen Abu Sama do really good things. Carson Hansen has been really good. The wide receivers, though, is where everybody pretty much pays attention. Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel are two of the better wide receivers in the Big 12 and in the country for that matter. They are really good and they're very fun to watch for different reasons. Higgins brings that more, the bigger frame that's more of that downfield threat. Noel does a lot of it damage, in the short to intermediate routes, but he can also take the top off the defense too. That's been a really fun duo to watch. If you haven't watched them, I recommend it. That's a fun team to watch when they are playing really well. And it'll be fun to see if they can play at their peak. Matt Campbell has done an incredible job of getting this team to exceed expectations. And this was a team, while everybody focuses on Arizona State, who again, they were picked at the bottom of the conference, but Iowa State was kind of ignored too. This is a team that definitely has a chip on their shoulder. They definitely have the ability to make things happen, and they've been exceeding expectations all year, and there's a reason that they're in the Big 12 championship game. The defense is going to have their hands full, and that being said, this is a defense that is super underrated, a super underrated team that has the ability to play at a high level, and they are a big reason why they're at this point. They're a big reason why they're in the Big 12 championship game, and it's going to be fun to see how they compete against this Arizona State offense. That's going to be a really fun matchup to watch. And that leads us to the impact players for Arizona State. And we've talked about a couple of them already. Cam Scatterbo, honestly, you can't talk enough about him. When you watch Arizona State play, he is a big reason why they have been successful. Over 1,300 yards, nearly 1,400, averaging 5.7 yards per carry, which is really good when teams are preparing for him. They're sending extra. It's the same impressiveness as Ashton Jeanty, essentially. Teams know that they're going to run the football, and there's still nothing they can do about it. 17 touchdowns for him as well. Again, kind of that bowling ball type runner, very physical, very explosive, and that's going to be really hard to tackle. Iowa State definitely has their hands full, but I'm really excited to see what Iowa State has in store and how that battle absolutely plays out. We talked about Sam Levitt. I think that he is going to be the biggest X factor for Arizona State. His ability to take care of the football, move the ball down the field, all that kind of stuff. He is a big reason why they are in this position. If he can stay healthy too, had a couple of health issues this year, some injuries. Maybe that plays a role. Hopefully not. But if it does, what does the offense look like without it? And if he stays healthy, how do they find ways to put in unique wrinkles? Kenny Dillingham has done an incredible job of getting this offense to play at a high level. And it's not just because of Scatterbo. Jordan Tyson has been a big player for them this year, and he's someone who stepped up in a huge way. We didn't really expect what he was going to do this year. I don't think a lot of people outside of Arizona State knew what he's capable of doing, but he has stepped up and been a huge player for them. The defense is kind of everything you expected. They're just taking things to another level. Shamari Simmons is someone who I think everybody knew inside of the Big 12, Pac-12 circles, but he has stepped his game up in a big way. Keyshawn Elliott was a former New Mexico State player who was a Big Ten player for them. He has stepped up in a big way for this defense. He has played a huge role for this defense. That's just kind of the theme for Arizona State's defense. They took things to where we thought they could be, and they rose that up to a different level that we didn't really expect. And that's been really fun to watch. Now, they have their hands full trying to stop this Iowa State offense. That passing attack is going to have a lot of things to consider, a lot of things to defend, and we'll see if this Arizona State team is up for the test. It's a really fun matchup. I can't say that enough. These two teams are really fun. They're super underrated. They've exceeded expectations. They're both 10-2, and they're both looking to get in the college football playoff. Winner of this game goes into the playoff. They get a chance to potentially get a bye. We'll see how everything shakes out this weekend, but this is a really fun matchup, one that could have major explosive plays, and it's going to be really fun to see which one of these teams writes their name into the postseason tournament.